Studio this hour. Benjamin Anthony is the CEO of the MirYam Institute. Welcome, Benjamin. Good to have you back in the studio. Our senior Middle East correspondent, Ariel Osman, is here with us as well. So, Benjamin, we are getting reports. This is from a source in the Prime Minister's office that there will be another meeting tonight between the Prime Minister and President Trump. Does that suggest to you that we are perhaps gearing up for some sort of announcement?
With regard to the hostage release deal and perhaps a potential ceasefire, I think that all of this trip to the United States by Prime Minister Netanyahu will be heavily weighted towards two issues. One is the continuing freedom of action of Israel over the skies of Iran in the event that we see Iran trying to replenish its nuclear weapons program and to rejuvenate that, and also to move towards this hostage release deal that President Trump has said very, very clearly that he wants to see happen, and he wants to see a ceasefire come about. But I heard the introduction where it was said that 80 to 90% of the issues might have been hammered out. Whatever the percentage that is hammered out, the remaining issues are very, very substantive issues. So there are basically three on either side. Israel is demanding the total destruction of Hamas as a fighting military, terror military, the expulsion of Hamas's leadership, those that remain in the Strip, which is limited, and the total disarming of the Strip. And in return, Hamas has three demands, including withdrawal from the Morag area by the Israel Defense Forces. It wants to regain control.
The Morag corridor.
Exactly. And it wants to regain control of the distribution of food. That's obviously its lifeline there for ruling the Strip. That directly contravenes Israel's aims for Hamas. And it also wants Israel to commit to an end to the war after the 60-day ceasefire, which Israel has said it's not particularly interested in doing. So
should Israel agree to those demands?
I don't think that Israel
for a staged hostage release?
I don't think that Israel should agree to the demands specifically for a staged hostage release. I think that there should be any deal that should come about should see the release of all of our hostages in one go, because the time when we could make the argument that there were certain hostages who needed to be released and prioritised due to humanitarian considerations, that argument has gone, in my opinion. Each and every one of the hostages is in a dire humanitarian state. All of them need to come home.
Why do you think 2 months into the Gideon's Chariots operation that was supposed to crush Hamas, that we were told was the last gasp of this war in Gaza, why is Hamas still in a position to make these demands?
Well, first of all, the Operation Gideon's Chariots is not resulting in face-to-face conflict with Hamas operatives. Hamas has moved as a terror organization into a guerrilla force. It's been downgraded to that by the actions of the Israel Defense Forces since we started to operate in the Gaza Strip after the October 7th massacre. And Hamas is very much learning the IDF's operational strategies and tactics inside the Gaza Strip. We saw that by the terrible loss of the 5 soldiers who perished by way of the landmines that had been laid there, and then the ambush that then struck down those soldiers, and another 14 injured as they moved to evacuate them from the scene of this. But I really don't think that anybody can argue with one simple fact. Hamas is going to remain in power as long as it has control of some of the hostages, and therefore the idea that they would negotiate for the full release of the hostages in one go, okay, without being given some sort of lifeline, is not going to hold water. Now, I've said all of the hostages should come home as one, but I want to remind everyone, Hamas has a say in that, and Hamas's say to this point has been no.
Yeah, all right, Benjamin, for now. Thank you. Well, Ariel, there is a sense, isn't there, that we are waiting for a broader announcement, ending the war in Gaza, but also some kind of regional deal. We know that President Trump would like to broker normalization between Israel and other countries. One of those countries being touted, of course, is Syria, and you have some developments on that.
Right, so there's been a lot of talk of security agreement, even peace by the end of the year between Israel and Syria. We can confirm that there is significant movement on that issue. And according to a Syrian source close to President Ashara of Syria, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Ashara are expected to meet at the White House ahead of the UN General Assembly in September. Now, according to this source who is close to the Syrian president, this meeting will see the signing of a security agreement between Netanyahu and Ashara. This agreement is going to be the first step towards a broader peace and normalization agreement between Israel and Syria. Now, additionally, sources in the Gulf have told I-24 News this evening that the UAE continues its extensive mediation efforts between Syria, and Israel with the knowledge of the Saudis. And the same sources in the Gulf stated that one of the major obstacles that still remain is Israel's unwillingness to commit to withdrawing its forces from the Syrian Golan Heights. These are the areas that were seized after the fall of Bashar al-Assad back in December. The reason for that, for Israel's unwillingness to commit to that, is due to the fact that there's an understanding in Israel that the Syrian president has still not yet regained full control over the territories, over all armed factions that are present across the country, but specifically in southern Syria.
So from Israel's perspective, why make a deal with someone who doesn't have full control over the country?
Well, ultimately, this will be a gradual withdrawal. So once the deal is signed, we should expect a grandiose ceremony in the White House, because this is under the patronage of U.S. President Trump.
Trump's very invested in that, of course.
Very, very much so. And this is not going to happen the following day. But ultimately, this is setting in motion a process that will lead to the full withdrawal of Israeli forces. But in order to reach that point, you have to sign the agreement first. And that is what's going to happen in September in the White House.
OK. Breaking news, exclusive from Ariel Osran there. Thank you. Just very briefly, what is your initial reaction to that?
I think al-Shara is seeking some sort of temporary arrangement with Israel because he's operating from a position of profound weakness. This is a very, very sincere al-Qaeda acolyte. I don't think that any leopard changes their spots, certainly not in the Middle East. I think he wants a temporary ceasefire because he wants to set about wiping out, quite frankly, the Alawite community, the Druze community, which Israel has a stake in protecting because of our own Druze community inside northern Israel. And Israel's interest here is that it assists us in isolating Lebanon. If we can continue to isolate Lebanon by bringing some sort of détente between us and Syria, it would not be full normalization with Syria.
Are you worried about aggravating Turkey, though, perhaps?
No, I'm not particularly worried about aggravating Turkey. I'm worried about any notion that Israel would withdraw from the areas it took after the fall of Bashar al-Assad. We should hold them, keep them, and remain on the peak of the Khilman.
OK. All right. Thank you both.